Private fertility clinics are targeting young women on social media. Here's why.
Did you pay for the total amount for the egg freezing process?
Do I have to say that? It's a bit. I'm happy to share how much the whole treatment would be.
The procedure can cost upwards of £7,000 to £8,000, and according to the Human Fertilisation and Embryology Authority, the UK fertility regulator, the average success rate for egg freezing is around 18%, which offers no guarantee of achieving a successful pregnancy and birth.
35,000 to about 40,000, and that money was actually going to be for a house.
And for some women, they've ended up spending thousands of pounds with almost zero guarantee of having a baby as a result.
I don't know many things that you pay that amount of money and there is simply no guarantee of success or money back or anything like that.
Here's the story about freezing your eggs in your 20s.
My social media feed has become inundated with influencers and adverts talking about egg freezing, as the number of people choosing to have this procedure in the UK has hit a record high.
I'm partnering with Spring Fertility, and we are going to be giving away an entire egg freezing cycle.
And alongside women with medical conditions choosing to undergo this procedure, there's a growing number of women choosing to undergo social egg freezing for non-medical reasons.
You know how I've been talking about egg freezing for the past, it feels like past decade, but I think about 3.5 years now. It's finally happening.
This is Sophie Herman. She's a main Chelsea star and social media influencer. And last year, she underwent egg freezing as part of a collaboration with a fertility clinic, posting about her journey online.
Why did you choose to have egg freezing?
I'm nowhere near ready to have a baby by myself yet, or even with somebody else. And you never know also what your own fertility looks like. That's actually that's a big thing that I've learned through this whole process.
Did you pay for the total amount for the egg freezing process?
Do I have to say that? It's a bit. I can say how much. I'm happy to share how much the whole treatment would be.
Yeah, go for that.
So the whole treatment altogether is between £7,000 to £8,000. And then you pay yearly £350 for the storage.
Do you know how many eggs were retrieved successfully?
With my age group, only 75% of all eggs, of thawed eggs, are actually guaranteed, or not guaranteed, but 75% chance that you can make a healthy baby from these thawed eggs.
The HFEA, they suggest that for across all clinics, the success rate is around 18%. Would you still say...
What is that? Sorry,
It is the Human Fertilisation and Embryology Authority in the UK. They suggest that the success rate is 18%.
Off.
For an egg frozen to successfully become a baby?
No, this is not correct.
An individual's success rate is highly dependent on their age, and it's advised that women should get their eggs frozen before the age of 35, as when a woman gets older, the quality and number of her eggs naturally drops.
75% chance that you can make a healthy baby from these thawed eggs.
However, hearing such a high success rate from Sophie did ring alarm bells. So I decided to speak to Dr. Zap Geron, a women's health lecturer and HFEA member, to explain why the UK fertility regulator believes the success rate to be much lower at 18%.
Now, if we look at average success rates for IVF, they tend to be around 30%. So even though egg freezing success rates are talked about as being lower, we can say, okay, that data is old, the technology is getting better. Women who are freezing their eggs now, they could think about around 30% if they're 35, let's say. I think that would be reasonable. If a woman is 40, then certainly her success rates are not going to be around that 30% figure. They're going to be much lower, maybe around 5%, which is what we're seeing for women over 40 going through IVF, something like that. And anything above 30, I'm not really sure how you would justify that.
A recent investigation into clinics found that 41% of sites didn't make clear their success rate for egg freezing, potentially breaching advertising guidance. Zainab's been monitoring how these clinics advertise since 2021.
There was a lot of talk about potential benefits of egg freezing, very little talk about the potential risks, which include things like ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, because at the end of the day, we're still talking about a medical procedure. The costs presented on websites were usually, in almost all cases, not accurate. So they underrepresented the costs by about a third, which is really significant. You know, if you're budgeting £5,000, you don't expect for the treatment to actually cost £7,500, and that can make quite a big difference for people.
How would you say that's changed since you did that research?
In general, I think what we have seen over the last few years is just an expansion of advertising. I think, I speak to a lot of people about issues to do with egg freezing, and more everybody's telling me about, particularly younger women, about ads popping up on their social media feeds. And so I think certainly there is more advertising in more ways, targeted advertising to younger and younger women, which I think is, seriously problematic.
In 2021, the 10-year limit on egg freezing was lifted, which means that women can now store their eggs for up to 55 years. And while this does mean more freedom of choice for women, Zeynep believes that clinics can now advertise to younger and younger women as a result.
When there was the time limit, the 10-year time limit, a 25-year-old would have nothing to gain from freezing her eggs because she would have to use them by the time she was 35. And, she wouldn't have sort of added on to her fertility in any way. But with no time limit, or, a 55-year time limit, which is very, very long time, there's nothing really to stop clinics advertising to women in their early 20s. And again, I just don't think that's the right age, the appropriate age for people to be thinking about these issues.
In the UK, around 4,000 egg freezing procedures took place in 2021 compared to 400 in 2011. It's now believed that egg freezing is the fastest growing fertility treatment, expected to be worth $540 million by 2025, up from $375 million in 2020.
At the beginning of 2016, I started the process of IVF, egg freezing, egg collections, finding donors and things like that.
This is Daisy. She underwent egg freezing at 21 as she was diagnosed premature infertile.
What was that egg freezing process like for you?
Tough. A lot of people find it okay. My body just did not respond well. Kind of altogether, I only got 2 embryos out of all of those eggs. So it really was just luck, basically, that I managed to get those 2 embryos. And they were the 2 embryos I transferred, one in the June and then one in the September. So hope my daughter is the September 2019 one. She's a little miracle. So, but yeah, it's a grueling process. I don't think many people speak about actually how hard it is.
In total, how much did the procedure cost you?
I would say around 35,000 to about 40,000. Yeah. And that's because, as I said, my body really wasn't reacting to the drugs. During the process, I found out my uterus was a heart shape. And you know what? I believe everything kind of happens for a reason. That was my journey. That's how I got hope, and I am forever grateful.
But for Bonnie, who underwent social egg freezing, the physical, mental and economic toll of the procedure was not worth the cost.
At the time that I did it, I was single and not in the position to make a decision of whether I wanted children or not. And so for me, it was opening up an opportunity or to give me opportunities and kind of keep a door open, I suppose.
So could you talk to me about the process? What was it like for you?
The way I've learned it is that your eggs one of them would win on one of the follicles, and you're taking the different hormones to make all the follicles grow and all the eggs try and get to the top at the same time and all grow big enough to be then pulled out in one go. I think they'd kind of agreed with me that they were afterwards. They said, yeah, we would have thought you'd have about 8 to 10. And I was going in with like 4 of them to pick from. So I was like, and you need about 10 eggs on ice for a chance of one for a chance of a child. That's kind of your good odds. Even that's not, nothing's given, but you're kind of going for 10 for 1. And so to even have like 3 or 4 to pick from, of which they had 2 successful eggs. So I've now got 2 eggs, which is like kind of not even worth freezing, and it costs you the exact amount of money to freeze 2 as it does to freeze 20.
What do you think your chances of being able to successfully have a baby from those eggs are if you've just got the 2?
0.
You think?
I honestly don't think it's like, at the same time, am I going to get rid of them? No. So I must think that I'm hopeful that it's not, but 2.
Would you say that you regret doing it?
Yes.
This investigation has boiled down to 2 things for me. Is this about female empowerment, or is this about the commercialization of our insecurities for fertility? Or is it somewhere in the middle?
Egg freezing definitely has a place. Just like IVF does. These are technologies that do extend some women's reproductive choices and options. And they do mean that some people who otherwise would not have had a child can have the genetic child that they so desperately wanted to have. So that's wonderful. That's amazing. Aren't we lucky to be living in an age where science can do that? Brilliant. But that doesn't mean that it's not at the same time being sold, oversold, exploitatively to people who don't necessarily need it at costs that are much higher than they should be, beyond the point where they might be of use to people. So with egg freezing, there's both sides. There's both women being marketed who absolutely have no need to freeze their eggs, and women sort of desperately freezing their eggs past the point at which those eggs are likely to be of any, of any likelihood to succeed.